Hello, 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 everybody. Hello. Hopefully you are all able to figure out where to watch from, and I apologize for Facebook's issues today. I could not link it to the Infinity Crafts page. So for those of you that are watching on YouTube, I'm not sure if I can get comments from you while you're watching. And everybody else, I hope that you were able to find a way to watch the live. So yeah, maybe next week we'll be back to normal. Hello, Auntie, how are you? Smoky, smoky, smoky out there, hey? Yes, I bet Chetwynd's smoky too. We're very smoky. Not as bad today, actually. And actually, as I'm looking out the window now, I see a bit of blue sky. So, yeah, it was way smokier yesterday. It's not quite as bad. So, both of you, are you watching through my timeline, my personal Facebook page, or yeah? It would not let me attach it to Infinity Crafts today for some reason. And of course, you gotta rely on technology, right? So I was just trying to get another iPad going so I could watch through YouTube and see if anybody's on there commenting, but it's taking some time, so might just be the two of you today, which is okay. I have a cool demo to do, so yeah, whatever. If it's just you guys, then that'll be fine too, right? So everybody's staying inside. Oh, yours is worse today? Yeah, I bet you're staying inside too, hey? Yeah, like, I mean, yesterday you couldn't even see the sky. It was so thick, and now it's at least clear skies, so that is a bonus. The kids have a bazillion questions about this, of course. You know, Ryder is very empathetic to everything in every situation, so, you know, trying to explain to him where the smoke's coming from and, you know, evacuation orders and things like that, you know, and where the fires are, and are we going to have to leave, and who has to leave, and where do they go, and so... So yeah, there was a lot of questions at breakfast this morning, so yeah. Hello, Lori, it's nice of you to join. Were you able to find the live all right through my Facebook page? Yeah. So, yeah, I know. So I have a little demo to do today with using some napkins, which I know I've done demos in the past using napkins, so I just building on that, right? Just building on that. So make sure if you are watching on my page or anywhere that you give me a comment so that I know that you're watching. And for anybody who may be watching on YouTube, my apologies, because I don't think I get the comments here. I'm not sure if I do. Oh yeah. So just make sure, please, that you're commenting so that I know who's watching. All right, I think I'm just gonna jump right into the demo, honestly, because it's gonna take a bit of time, and that's the fun part, right? And I don't really have a lot to talk about today, so we'll just jump right into it, hey? Napkins, and I'm sure I've asked this before, but anybody, I think both of you, probably Dagny and Lori, you probably both use napkins in your crafting. So like I said, this is just another way of using it. I'm just clearing off my little work surface here. Okay, so let me go switch cameras. Okay, so what I decided to try was I wanted to know, I kind of watched a bit of a YouTube video, sort of, she was using napkins in her junk journals or art journal or something it was. Anyway, I thought, oh, I never really thought about that. So then I thought, well, what about if you took and put texture paste down? So I think that you guys can see the texture paste there. So I have, this is just a patterned piece of paper, right? And I took some stencils and I put texture paste on. This one in the corner you can't quite see as much because it's not as thick a stencil. The bubbles or the circles you can see really well because there was a larger area that you got the texture paste on, right? So I kind of did around the side and to the bottom. And so I thought, well, what happens, because napkins are so thin, right? What would happen if you put napkins over the texture paste and got it to, like, what would happen? Honestly, I'm just pouring some Mod Podge here on my plate. So I always just use Mod Podge. I think that there's other things out there, and I know people have said that there is other things that they like, but I'm good with Mod Podge. It hasn't let me down. It's one of those things probably where if I tried something else, I might find something better that I liked, but like I said, it hasn't let me down yet, so I'm sort of sticking with it. I should move my camera to the other side, my little face camera to the other side so that it's not always over the project, hey? I'll do that for next time. So I've done this now a couple times because I actually have another one for the next step prepped. So what my best thought was, so the first one that I did it how you would normally. Well, hello Sharon, nice of you to join. So I did it like you would normally do Mod Podge. I put it down and then I put the napkin down and then I put Mod Podge again over top of it. But I didn't really like the way that the final project turned out. So when my second one, what I did a little differently is I just dip my brush here in some of the glue and I'm just gonna brush it over the areas, just the areas with the texture paste, okay? And I don't want to put a ton of glue on, but I do want to make sure that I'm getting through the texture paste, like through the raised bit, all the way down to the paper, okay? So then I sort of pre-rip the napkins and separate them, of course. You always make sure that you're separating your napkins, right? You want it just to be down to the single ply. You know what? This one's kind of a nice, well, no, it should actually go in the top corner. Just sorting through my napkins here. Sure, let's use this one. Let's slap this big one on here. Let's put it this way. Should we? How should we put it? No, it's got to go either this way or this way. All right, we're committing now. Okay, so then I take a brush that is just a dry brush and I just pounce over top of it just to make sure, because the napkins are delicate, right? And I don't want to get glue on my fingers and everything, so I just use a dry brush and just pounce over the napkin just to make sure that it's really sticking down all the way through. And then I'm going to put a butterfly, I think, next. And so if you have pieces as you're ripping your napkin, you have, you know, extra pieces, and then when you go to place it, you don't want that, just rip it, right? And because I'm not putting Mod Podge over the top of these, it will react a little bit differently, because a lot of times when you put Mod Podge over the top of your item as well, it sort of blends that in, right? Where this kind of won't do that, because I'm not going to brush over the top of this to get that blending look, right? So whatever doesn't stick just will come off at the end. So again, take your dry brush, just pounce it down so that you're getting it in the texture paste. I'm not going to do this whole entire page. I'll work on it a little bit because I mean this is pretty straightforward. Hello, I think that's probably Audrey. It might be my husband, but it's probably Audrey. So hello, whoever from my family is watching. And I apologize if my voice is a little bit raspy. I, you know, have children who go to school and bring home germs, so that's where I'm at. What do I want? I just want to put something a little bit more on this bottom corner because I still have some pieces that are showing there. some pieces of the texture paste. I don't know if I want this. I want a smaller piece of flour maybe. What else do I have left on here? Maybe just a little bit of this piece. So I'm just going to rip a little piece of this. So just rip gentle, right? It's not, doesn't have to be, I might put a little bit more Mod on here now that I've got. So I know that there's probably a few of you that use maybe other glue for napkins. What else is out there that other people like to use with their napkins? I did order some Deco Art decoupage medium. I haven't tried it yet, but it's here in the store and I need to try it out. I just, like I said, I like Mod Podge. It works for me, so I like to sort of just stick with it. And now too, when I'm putting on napkins or anything, and I've mentioned this before, I don't like to have the solid edges, so I tend to rip those and make them so that they're not so solid. I'm just trying to figure out where I want this bird to go. I could put it there. You know what? I think I'm going to separate it from these other flowers. And whatever, if you rip a little bit of it or it doesn't, you know, it's okay. So maybe these flowers here. So again, you just make sure that you're covering your texture paste. So I'll just do a little bit more here and then I'm going to go on because I actually have a whole nother demo completely different and I want to be able to get to that. So I'm just going to do up the side and then we'll move on, okay? Because you guys don't need to watch me do this. You've done it 100 times. The multi-medium, really? Man, I just cannot get my thought process around that multi-medium gel. I don't know. I've used it on a few things. I did use it again on, I can't even remember, just last week or the week before, which I hadn't used it for a while because the first time I used it, I did not like it at all. So I gave it another try and I definitely am warming up to it. So maybe I just have to kind of keep giving it a whirl. All right, so I'm gonna just leave this here, but you get the idea, right? And then I also have texture paste across the top here. So I would eventually, of course, fill that in. And I can continue that at another time, but I just kind of wanted to show you. So once you have all your napkin pieces on here, and don't worry if they are, of course, going over the edge, right? You can trim those off after once it's dry. And then like this, if there's loose pieces where there wasn't texture paste, once it's dry, you can easily just rip those pieces off and just kind of tidy things up, right? So that would be sort of like a step one. When it is finished, sorry, I gotta reach here. When it is finished, you would get this effect. So I'm going to put it up to see if you guys can see the texture through. It's not going to show, it's going to be faint, but I'm going to show you how we're going to make it really stand out. What if I put it like, oops, down a little bit in? Yeah, there you can kind of see some of the texture right there. You can see a bit of texture here. This one you can see it easier because this is, like I said, a wider spot, so you can see the texture there. So I have finished this off. Oh, I still got a few little loose bits that I'll just pick off. And I mean, honestly, I'm just picking it off because I just want napkin on the texture paste part. But if I was doing this maybe on it for a different reason, you could go back in, like this piece right here, you could go back in just to add a little bit more glue and just tamp it back down, because maybe by the time I stuck the napkin on there, the glue was dry. So play around with it and get it beautiful, right? Then what we're going to do is we're going to use ink to highlight the texture, the raised bits, right? So pick an ink. What do you guys think will be the best ink? Give me some votes. Give me some votes. We have weathered wood, we have antique linen, we have tea dye, and we have old paper. So these are definitely these two I don't tend to go with very often because even though it's old paper, it seems like it has such a green tone. And to me, I just never seem to match up anything to use tea dye. However, I did use it on another project a few lives ago, and that sounded funny, but you all know what I meant. And I was actually surprised. It was a lot nicer color than I expected it to be. So anybody want to give me some votes? Any of you watching out there in YouTube or Facebook world? I don't want to wreck my other butterfly. The pink? There's no pink. Do you mean tea dye? Yeah. Weathered wood, tea dye. Okay, well, just because my next page, the first one I did, I used weathered wood on it. So I think I'm going to go with the tea dye, okay? And then I'll show you the other one that I completed with the weathered wood on it. So you kind of both get your choice, okay? So I'm using the oxide ink, so I'm not using the regular distress. I'm using the oxide just because, of course, it's opaque, and that is what I want it to be. So I'm going to take my pad, and I'm just going to start to rub it across the top. And as you do that and you kind of play around with it a little bit, you'll start to see that the texture will pop out. And now, of course, this is personal preference, absolutely. So you can do this as little or as much as you possibly want. So it depends on how much texture or design that you want to show through your napkin as to how much. And see, I'm going to have to, I'll hold this up. I'm going to have to fix a few pieces on here, but so it depends on how much of your texture paste that you actually want to have shown up is to how much of this ink you put on. So I'm putting a fairly light coat on. I'm not really slamming it in there, and you could probably do this in a lot of different ways. I just find this quick and simple and easy, so that's why I'm doing it direct with the ink pad. And then, of course, you could always ink your edges too, right? Get it. So it gives it now, with just using those napkins, it gives it a whole different look. I'm just gonna do a bit more over here. Kind of missed the butterfly a little bit. So like I said, you could do this as little or as much as you want. All right, so that was tea dye. Hello, Lori. So I'm gonna lift this up. So don't worry about my rolled napkins here. I'll just peel those off after. I just didn't quite get those glued down, and I didn't get them peeled back good enough. So don't worry about those, but I just want to show you now, and I really like actually how this piece turned out, because before you could hardly see the texture, and now you can really see that how that tea dye just highlighted everything. And then again, the same over here with the butterfly in the other corner. You can just see how that tea dye highlighted the raised bits, because with tamping in that napkin, we just left the texture paste raised, and it actually shows through the napkin because of the napkin being so fine, right? I mean, you can see it, of course, the best here because that's a dark flower, but so that would then be our page, like a sort of an easy way to do a bit of a more of a mixed media page. Now, I said that I would show you the first one I did. I honestly now, because this page would be this one was my second one, and the one I worked on the camera was my third, but so this was my first. So as with everything, you take your first with a grain of salt, right? Now, I did do the napkins and a bit more texture paste on this one, and then I did ink this one with weathered wood. So I'll lift it up so you can see. Now, I want to say one thing. I did use, I don't know if you can see, it's kind of glittery through here. Can you, let me see if I can show that. So when I first decided to do this, you can't really see it through there. I thought, okay, I'm going to use texture paste. You can see that really well here. Maybe. I'm going to use texture paste, but then I'm going to use some paper glaze or some other texture items here. Maybe on the butterfly you can see it. Right? to just see if texture paste, like if there's any differences. So I used paper glaze. It's actually, I think it might be called paper glitz. You can maybe see a bit of it right here sticking out. It's kind of glossy. I did not like it. It did not hold its shape well enough. It was not thick enough. And so when I did the one for this live, I only used texture paste. So you definitely want something that's a little bit thicker, because you want the actual depth in there, right? So other glazes or pastes or things may work. That glitter one did not. And I was actually thinking, well, the napkin's thin, maybe the glitter would show through it. Very, very subtly maybe, but not enough to give me the effect that I wanted. So, and then the weathered wood, I don't know if I just went too heavy-fisted on it or what, but I just feel like it went more of just all over rather than, I mean, you can kind of see the difference on the butterfly here, but I don't know if I like the tea dye, but here, I'll put them side by side and you can kind of see the difference. Oops, I'll move them over here. Of course, you put the napkins in different spots, right? So the one we just did, it's just, this one's more lighter, right? It's just a little bit more. And I would maybe, you could do some inking in the middle too, right? To pull it together. This one is nice, the fact that I did so much texture paste and stuff around, you know, I do really like it for that. So it's, again, just all trial and error, right? Now, when I'm separating the napkins, I'm always thinking, man, like, what do you do with all these extra white pieces? Because I never want to waste. I never want to waste the napkins, so I don't like just throwing them out, although I have done that in the past. So I wanted to find a solution where I could use those other pieces, the other plies of the napkin, and make use of them, because I don't like, as I'm sure most crafters out there, I don't like throwing things out, right? Especially when you know in the back of your mind it could be useful for something, right? So I just happened upon a YouTube video for paper casting, and I thought that was a really cool thing to do, to use up your other plies of napkin. And so I'm gonna just now switch my camera again, and I'm just gonna give you, oops, I'm trying to do my picture in a picture thing here again. Give me a minute. I'm working on it here. That one and that one. There we go. All right. So I am going to just give you a quick demo on how to do this part of it. So you need your glue again, whatever glue you decide to use. This was my pouncing brush. Okay. So then I'm going to just basically make some watered down glue. Okay. So I'm not going to take very much. Kind of dip my brush in about that, and then I'm just going to put it and mix it in the water. Okay, so I mean, it'll make the water milky, because that's what you want. You do want actual glue, right? Now, this is the piece. I'll maybe bring these over to see if you can see, because they got white. So this is the second ply, and you can see it's from that one napkin I used on the page with the big pink flower on it, or burgundy flower. So this is the second ply, and these are the ones that really bother me to throw away because they have that imprint on there. So I am going to start. Has anybody done any paper casting before? I've only tried it with these rubber stamps, so I'm not sure how it will work with other stamps. I would assume as long as you had some more depth like before, that it would probably be okay. So these napkins are very thin. You may get some ripping. It's okay. Just be as gentle as you can. And the trick is that you really have to get it into all the little nooks and crannies. Now, I didn't want to use this stamp because I felt that it was just too detailed. So I wanted something that had a little bit bigger details on it. So this is my very first layer, and I'm just wetting it just to kind of get my layers started. I was a little bit nervous about putting the glue part right directly on my stamp. I was a bit nervous about how that would come off, if it would. So I thought, you know what, let's start with just a plain layer with water and go from there, okay? So now here's my second layer, look, with the butterflies on it. So that's gonna be my second layer. And as you start, you can pounce it on, and then as it kind of starts to be a bit drier, then that's when I'm switching my brush. You don't need very much liquid. And now I'm gonna go to my glue brush. Oops, that was really wet. That's okay, it'll absorb as I get more layers on here. So can everybody see okay what I'm doing here? Is it showing up all right? And of course I'm going a little bit faster, so probably I would take a little bit more and even use maybe a stiffer brush or a little bit of a different brush, just so that, you know, maybe you can get into the finer details on things. Hi Rhonda, you're late. Well, at least I'm glad that you were able to find out where we were. So I'm just working on doing some paper casting right now. You'll have to go back and watch the replay of the page that we were working on, but this is new to you, Dagmy? What? I'm showing you something you didn't know? That's awesome. So, yeah. Okay, so if this is new, then do you just throw the white pieces out of the napkin? Because that's what I had done up until this point. And I'm not saying that now, knowing this, that I'm going to do this every time, because as you can see, it takes time. However, it is something where you could gather your pieces of your napkin, and I'm going to leave that later, and then, you know, have a day where you just do a bunch of paper casting, right? The lady that on the YouTube video I was watching, she had an old wooden blocked rubber stamp, and it was like a smaller mandala. It was probably about, I don't know, 2-3 inches big, and that's what she used, and it was pretty cool. So I thought, wow, that's an awesome idea. So how do I do something that incorporates sort of both layers of the napkin, right? All right, so I'm putting on about 8 layers. Now, you can use paper towel. However, you would not want the paper towel that is patterned, and same with toilet paper. You could use that as well, but again, you probably wouldn't want the stuff that's patterned. Now, maybe you would. I don't know. I've only done it with the napkin bits because I wanted to find a use for them. So maybe textured paper towel and things maybe is perfectly fine. I'm not sure. So anyway, just go through. I have this one and then one more layer, and I'm just going to go through and show you. This brush is kind of on its last days, I think. The bristles are getting pretty poked out of it. So the idea is just to keep it wet enough that it takes shape of the stamp, but not wet enough that, of course, it's ripping the napkin apart, right? I need a little bit more. So of course, like I can't really show you, but this cup's about an inch, has about an inch of water in the bottom of it, and of course, you know, you hardly use anything for doing this. So definitely it would not take very much water or glue to complete a bunch of these. So that is what you do, just like that. Get to the end of about your 8 layers, like I said, and then you let it dry. And I don't know how long it takes to dry. Sorry about my face. I left mine overnight last night and let it dry. So I'm not sure. I never really timed it. I'm just cleaning up my Mod Podge here. I never timed it to see how long it would take. I would assume a few hours. But like I said, it's not like I did it in the morning to see how long it lasts. So put that aside, let it dry. And I actually really like these Tim Holtz stamps because they come with this plastic piece. So it's kind of like all in one. And this is what you get when it's all finished. So it's fairly thin. It's, I would say, not even as thick as cardstock. Now maybe if you put more plies on it, maybe you use your, oh, oh really? Okay, well that's good. Use them as actual napkins. Well, I mean, you might as well, right? But yeah, this is what you get when you take it off. Now, like I said, I didn't put the glue on the very first one because I was a little bit nervous about my stamp, so I don't know how that is. And I'll see if I can show this to you. You can see where it looks like the layers could separate right there. I don't know if you guys can see it real well, but oops, here, I'll show this. Just trying to find my camera. So right here you can see kind of too that they're separating. You know, it could just be, especially on the edges where I just didn't get as much water on there or as much glue. So I think that this would be a trial and error kind of a thing. But you can also on this one see how there's a bit of an image there. That was the butterfly one from the other napkin. And it's very subtle, but you can still see it. And then I'm sure, because basically this would just be paint. Yes, absolutely. I was just going to say, I'm sure you could paint it, you could spray it. It's going to still probably be very porous, I would imagine. So if you are inking, I would think that you would want to ink very gently. I'm just going to step away for a second, grab my blending brush, and then we will give it a whirl with at least just using a blending brush on it, and let's just see what that could give you. I'll use the weathered wood since it sort of lost out on the vote. So it takes blending very beautifully, doesn't, you know, like flatten or anything like that. So let's try, oh, actually, you know what? Let's go like this. So now I'm covering up my butterfly, but that's okay. I'm sure you could also put some kind of a sealer over this. You could maybe even use different colors of, I mean, I feel like it's kind of along the lines of making homemade paper, right? Would a brayer wouldn't, Lori, because you want to get it into the grooves on the stamp, right? I mean, it's actually like an embossed piece of paper is what it is, and it's only like that because of me pouncing on that stamp and getting it into all those grooves on the stamp. So I'm just going to now use this, and we're going to blend in some old paper with it. But this could be another great way. You could probably, I mean, I'm sure that there's tons of things. You could maybe even gesso it now, Dagny. Or you could put some kind of like a stiffener, maybe? Even like a fabric stiffener on it to make it withstand and be a bit thicker. What do I have left? Antique linen. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit more of this on. My weathered wood. What time? Oh, I'm keeping you guys over. I'm just going to finish this up a little bit. I'll put some I'll spray some water on it so you can see. Oh, there's not much difference between, slight green tinge, but there's not a whole lot of difference between old paper and antique linen other than a tiny bit of a green tinge. All right. Spray a bit of water because this is oxide ink. See what it does because it's very porous, right? I don't think you'd want to re-wet it a lot, but there you go. So the water droplets, because I'm only inking that one top layer, it almost basically took the color right away from it because the water instantly soaks into the layers. But it's something to try, and it still looks beautiful, and you could still cut this. You could do so many things with this. Yeah, like I said, I've only tried this on rubber stamps because of the depth, but maybe just regular stamps would work too. Maybe embossing folders would probably work as well, especially the 3D ones. You could get some really nice looks, and you may even be able to do like a layer of wet paper or napkins and just run it through your embossing folder. I don't know. Maybe that's something we can try next week on the live, hey? So just, you know, some extra little bits there of how to use your napkin pieces, and that's about all I have for you today. So I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Again, I'm sorry that the link up didn't work out, but I'm glad that a few of you found me and was able to join in. So I thank you very much for that. And yeah, I hope that I gave you some inspiration. So if you decide you're gonna try this out the next time you're using napkins, make sure you let me know and send me a picture of what you've paper casted. All right, so take care, everybody. Stay safe. Hope your family stays safe, and have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your weekend.